Hello, I'm Sapna Pieroux, brand consultant, designer, author of Let's Get Visible, and today I'm an interviewer too. I'm delighted to introduce to you the lovely Hannah Martin, founder of Talented Ladies Club. It's a global online magazine and she's a training provider as well, with over 4 million readers today, including us. She's also an award-winning copywriter with 23 years experience working for some of the world's top ad agencies and brands, and a qualified psychotherapist, hypnotherapist, and NLP practitioner. I'm absolutely in awe. She's a business mentor for NatWest's Entrepreneur Acceleration Program, a mentor of 2 all-party parliamentary groups that represent women, and a frequent media commentator. I mean, this just amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today, Anna.
Oh, you're welcome. It's lovely to speak to you, Sapna. I've spoken to you in the past. It's the first time I've actually sort of seen you, isn't it?
Is it? I thought we've spoken.
Yeah, we've spoken, but I've never seen you on video. This is as good as it gets face to face these days. But
I know. One day we'll have a real life cocktail, I'm sure, hopefully.
Yes.
So I just want to give a little bit of background to what we're doing today. Every year we do a blog for International Women's Day, and we highlight the careers of inspirational women that we know in our circles, and just find out a little bit more about them to promote female entrepreneurs. And we do it every year. This year is the first time that we're doing it as a video interview. So you're my first interviewee. I've given everybody a little bit about what you do, but tell us a bit more about yourself, about you, Hannah, and what led you to where you are now.
Gosh, that's so well. Where do I start? So I worked in advertising, as you mentioned. I worked in London, worked for the big ad agencies, loved my career. Then I fell pregnant with my son unexpectedly. I still live in Worthing, which is it's a 5-hour round commute to where I was working in London.
Wow.
And I was the breadwinner at that time. I was a single mum quite shortly after having my son as well. So I always needed to work. I couldn't give up my job. I didn't want to give up where I lived, and there was a commute. So when I had my son, I hired an au pair, and my grandmother helped out. And I didn't really raise my son. I didn't really see him much in his early years because I was always working. And in fact, when I divorced, my son went to live with my grandmother, and I only saw him weekends because I couldn't make it work. So fast forward a few years later, when I had my daughter. So she's 11 now, and I was pregnant with her. I decided I did not want to do the same thing. I missed out on so much. Yeah. And then I by then met my now second husband. And so I decided to work from home. In those days, it wasn't like it is today. It was quite difficult. And we're talking about 2008. So I went freelance.
Then really?
Sorry?
Quite the pioneer then, really. I mean, lots of people weren't doing it then, were they?
So. No, they weren't, and it wasn't possible. So I did work for all the big agencies in London. I wrote Ford's website. I worked for massive clients. They didn't want to have someone working from home. They wanted people like the bums on seats kind of thing. So I started finding new clients and built a new separate business around a freelance career around that. A while later, I started making friends locally, and I realised how many women were like me, that their careers didn't work with having children in the same way they used to work. And the industries they were working in, like mine, just weren't flexible. And there was nothing online at that time that spoke to women like us. There's nothing inspirational. The only real messaging out there was all very sort of pink and girly. And it was very much like you had a career, but now you've got to be grateful for what you can get.
Yeah.
And that wasn't acceptable to me. I didn't think it should be acceptable to other women. So I decided to create something that did talk to me and my friends. I thought, if we're out there, then there must be other people like us. I had no experience whatsoever about how to build an online, magazine. Didn't know how to make money out of it, but I just wanted to create something. And so I started TLC, and that's how it got started.
Amazing. And that was how many years ago now?
I launched April 2013. So this time 8 years ago, I was building it.
Wow. And I started my business about 5-6 years ago, and that's when we discovered Talented Ladies Club. And we love the content, and we've been supporting, and we've been sort of retweeting each other's content ever since, really, haven't we? And sharing that. So what do you love about running your own business?
Oh gosh, so much. It's like, it's when I first, before I really made the decision to go freelance properly when I was getting divorced. I went to see a tarot reader because, that kind of, post-marriage kind of everything's in flux. Yeah. And I felt like I was a bit lost at the time. And the first thing he said to me was I was unemployable. He said, wow. In the nicest possible way, that you will never want to work for anyone again. And actually that's true. I love working for myself. I love the fact that I make all the decisions. You work harder for yourself. You probably understand this, Sapna, than you do for anyone else.
Yeah.
But I love it because if I don't work, then I don't reap the benefits. And if I do work, and if I work in the right way, then I do. So I love the fact that I make all the decisions. If I want to stay up working till midnight, I've decided that. No one has told me to do it. So I love the autonomy it gives you. I love the steep learning curve that it's constantly having. So yeah, I think, I choose the hours I work, which really works around a family. I choose the things I work on, which really helps. You get to decide what are the kind of things you want to do. If you don't like an area of your business, then you can outsource it or don't change your business model. So I love the flexibility and freedom it gives you.
Yeah, no, I love that as well. There must be downsides though as well. I mean, is there anything that you don't like about running your own business?
Well, there are. I mean, certainly in the early days, when you run a business yourself, outsourcing is a luxury for people who have a good turnover. So you can find yourself having to do jobs that maybe you wouldn't choose to, aren't your strengths. And I think the loneliness is a big part of it as well. When you work in a company, you have colleagues, you have a manager who kind of sets you goals and you go to for help. And if you need help, you've got other departments to turn to. When you run a business yourself, it is quite lonely. I think it's really important to find, and I think social media is great for this, but find other people who are doing similar things, and they become the colleagues that you don't have. And I think, and also getting help. In the early years of TLC, I really struggled on alone. I thought I've got to make this go this myself. And I reached a point where I personally hired a coach, and it transformed TLC. And I still today, I constantly have a coach. I always invest in coaching because I recognize that the expertise and accountability I get from outside really helps me. Sure. It does, yeah. And so you have access to their, and I change coaches sort of every year or so because I'll look at another area of my business and think, well, that's going really well now, but I'm not so strong in that. And it would be really great to find someone. So I don't hire any of the big kind of online names. I look for someone who's done really well in something. I privately contact them and I work with them. That's sort of how I do it. But I love it. So the loneliness definitely is, the loneliness from doing it on your own, but also the lack of accountability and the lack of expertise to turn to when you're just solo.
Yeah, no, I find that as well. I mean, I've got a small team now, which really helps with that. There's somebody to bounce off, and it helps with my husband's an entrepreneur as well. So we quite often, he's very good with tech and I'm not. So he does all my support. I'm just touched on International Women's Day, which is why we're doing this series of interviews. And the theme this year is Choose to Challenge, which is all about gender equality. What are the biggest challenges you've had to overcome in your career in that area?
Do you know what? I would have said up until when I had my son that I'd never really faced any gender inequality, and it didn't exist. It didn't exist, but it didn't exist in my like in my kind of experience.
Yeah.
And I was always, we're probably similar ages. So I grew up with a female lover or hater, a female prime minister. There were comprehensive schools, equal access to education. I had a university grant, so I could go to university for free, and there were no fees then for university. So we really grew up in an age where there were no barriers, and I really felt that I never saw any difference between men and women. I genuinely didn't, because it never really appeared in my world until I became a mother. And I've written about this on the site and spoken on television about this a few times. Well, after I went back to work after having my son, I had a glowing appraisal from my boss. I got given a bonus because I'd won the company lots and lots of awards. 6 weeks later, I was told to leave within 24 hours because they said I wasn't good enough. I had never been good enough. Since out that they wanted to hire a younger, cheaper man, and they looked at the hours I was actually my bottom was on a seat for, and and they counted my worth in terms of the hours I was physically sat in a chair rather than the work that I did. and I was forced to sign an NDA and leave. And I'm a survivor. I very quickly got a much better job at a better agency on more money. That was fine, but it made me realise that there, and I still think things have moved on, but it still remains the business environment often looks at mothers as a problem,
yes,
rather than a benefit. I actually, like you, I see people help me with TLC, and aside from one person who's a guy, so physically can't be, they're all mothers. I love working with mothers. Mothers are resourceful. Yes, sometimes they can't work physically because their kid's sick, or
with our time, aren't we?
But yeah, they are, they're resourceful. They have initiative. I think mothers are brilliant, and I think there's a real, rather than looking at the great things everyone brings, every single person or demographic or whatever will bring different strengths and qualities. What they tend to look at is the restrictions. So they focus on the fact that mothers can't work the same hours. They don't turn around and say, well, actually, it's been proven that women working on flexible hours are the most productive sector of the workforce. This has been proved.
Yeah.
So I think companies tend to look, or as a society, we tend to look at the negatives of things rather than what can someone bring to the table that someone else maybe can't, and where's their strength. So yeah, that's definitely, for me, has been something I've really noticed.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I felt that once I had kids, I mean, actually just even telling my boss that I was pregnant ended up him treating me completely differently through the rest of my time there. And then he got a guy in to do my maternity cover, and then made it really difficult for me to come back because he said, oh, actually, we've changed your job spec and you're now dealing with international clients. And so I was expected to travel, and he knew that was going to force me out of the job.
Yeah.
So,
effect, isn't it?
Yeah. But at the time I was just like, I just wanted to get out. So I just went with it. I was like, okay, fine. Yeah, I mean, but the big challenges that we've all had to overcome in our careers, mainly to being mothers, which is unusual, not unusual, but I wish it was more unusual. So tell me, what's your typical day or week like now?
Well, right now,
maybe not with lockdown.
If we weren't in lockdown. So my daughter goes to school about 8:10. I have an office, so I'm really lucky. I live, which is why I never wanted to move from my town. I live really close to the sea. So my daughter goes to school. I walk along the beach to my office, which is just across the road from the sea. And what I tend to do, I get to my office at 8:30 and then I leave at 3. I don't generally take a break. It's not terribly good for you, but I live off tea because I think I would rather really maximize those hours and have time off to work, like with my daughter, and I love cooking. So yeah, so I tend to work from like 8:30 to 3 in my office, just work all the way through. Then I'll come home and I'll usually we do a bit of housework, a bit of cooking, which I love cooking. My husband also, now he always commutes to London, but now he's got his own business and he also has an office 5 minutes walk away. So he's usually home by 4. Sometimes I might do a bit of work in the evening, but generally I try and work within those hours and keep my business like that. And I find, and I've really learned this, I had a really poor work-life balance approach before. I used to think like, hey, I can work on my phone while I'm cooking, and I can, I was kind of never really off, never really on. But I found that actually I've got more time and energy and enthusiasm when I have distinct working hours and distinct not working hours. So, bar an emergency, if I'm cooking dinner, I'm not checking my phone, I'm not working, rather than, oh, I'm going to send a quick email while the pasta's boiling. I generally kind of try to be really present to what I'm doing.
Compartmentalize the day. And it's hard to do when you're freelance and when you work for yourself. But I think having a team also helps, doesn't it? Because you can actually delegate stuff as well. And you're not running around trying to do it all yourself. Yeah, that's something that I'm really finding the benefits of having a team this year. I was working all hours, and now I've got weekends free and evenings free, and it's helping with the homeschooling as well. I can delegate a bit. So how do you balance running your business and career? You've said with your personal family life, you compartmentalize things. You delegate? anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, delegation is a big thing, and learning how to do that. So I have a woman called Jo that works for me. She does a set amount of hours a week, and while I was paying her, not really giving her very much to do, and still doing it all myself. So working out, and that's the kind of thing, working out systems about how you delegate, because it's all very well hiring someone, but you've actually got to hand over stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, learning how to delegate is really important.
Definitely. What about are there any time-saving apps or productivity hacks that you've got?
Oh God, yes, definitely. So I'm quite late to the party on that. It's not this is not going to be very revolutionary by any means. I mean, it's probably going to
it will be to somebody.
Yes. So time has always been really tricky for me. Like most of my emails would start with "I'm sorry, I forgot," or "I missed," previously. And if people wanted to kind of have any of my time, I would have to email me, and then I would look at my paper diary and go, "Oh, I'm free on these times in a week," and send them to them. That they might come back 2 days later, and they'll go, "Oh, I'll speak to you at Thursday at 3," and someone's already taken that time, and I got an email. So I have literally only probably I think in November started using Google Calendars and syncing my phone up, and I use Calendly, and it syncs to Calendly, and it syncs to all my emails. And so now I have it's like having like a free VA. I have like a centralized calendar, and I can also block out time. So now I look at my week and I think, well, like I'm just running a summit this week, and because it's the first one I've run, so it's had a lot of kind of planning and technical learning. So I would book out and go, right, okay, so Tuesday morning and Thursday afternoon, I'm going to be working on the summit, and I'd literally block them out of my calendar so I can physically see what my week looks like. But then also, if someone wants to speak to me, I just send them. I got up Calendly links for 30 minutes, an hour, 90 minutes, depending on what the meeting is. And if someone wants to speak to me, I send them a Calendly link. And then my diary does all of that when I'm free, when I'm not free. So like I say, it's not revolutionary to, it's basic, but oh my goodness, the difference it has made to my headspace, to my planning has been amazing.
I'm amazed that you've built such a successful business and you've only just moved over to Calendly. That's incredible, but it's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. How do you? I mean, obviously you've got a really successful business. You've spent a long time building that up, and there are ups and downs in that. And right now we're homeschooling and we're sort of juggling. How do you motivate yourself? I mean, have you naturally got a high energy level, or are there days when you kind of just think? Because I'm struggling with that right now, actually. Yeah,
well, you know what, actually, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people this week, actually, that I work with, and I think everyone's feeling fairly similar right now, in that, this is early January, we are back in lockdown, it's the most depressing time of the year. I mean, we're approaching Blue Monday, for goodness sake. And I think there's a little
March, but yeah.
I know when we're talking to give context to now, I know, like, in where we are now. So a lot of people are feeling it. The advice that I feel and I give to other people is be kind to yourself and be realistic. And if you are feeling, so I plan my week out and I go, okay, I'm going to be doing this at that time, and then I'll sit down and I'll be like, and I learned this when I was freelancing. If I had a project I don't want to work on, I go, right, so it's 10 a.m. right now. If I start work on this by 11:30, I will have had this done, and I'm going to celebrate with a cup of tea. And I imagine myself having a cup of tea at 11:30, and then I just get stuck into it. So that's one way I do it. Another way is that if I am feeling down, what tends to happen then is we struggle with creative thinking, and we struggle with those kind of things. So I don't do any tasks that require that kind of part of my brain. And I think, well, okay, if I'm not feeling motivated, I'm going to do my invoicing, and I'm going to do my accounting, or I will tidy my office, because like actually nothing, the physical energy of tidying and then the lovely sight of looking at a clean office motivates you. So I tend to find tasks that fit how my mind at the moment. That really helps me.
Yeah, I get too easily distracted when I'm feeling a little bit like, so I've been watching episodes of Dexter through lockdown to motivate myself. I don't know why, but just watching
it works.
Yeah, it just cheers me up. I don't know, watching a serial killer cheers me up. Not sure why. Maybe she's worried. So you're what I would consider a very successful business lady. How do you define success? And what success are you most proud of?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And how do define success as, am I reaching the goals that I set for myself? You know, and those goals can be lots of things. So for me, success means, am I genuinely helping people? Am I creating products that I'm proud of? Do I feel I'm making a difference in the world? Do I love what I do? That's really important to me. You know, I've got no desire, I never had in my career, ever to do something for the sake of it. So am I working to my skill set? Am I, to my strengths? Am I doing stuff I love? Am I making the world better for other people? Then yes. And then obviously I run a business, so a level of success is going to be financial. So I set myself financial goals every month, and I make sure and they're realistic, so I adjust them depending on, what kind of environment we are. So I'm really proud of the fact, and it's taken a long time, that the Times Ladies Club has grown financially successful, and it's done it with multiple income streams that are solid and firm. We see a lot of these sort of like fly-by-night coaches who emerge and suddenly turning over like 7 figures from nowhere. But I'm really proud of the fact my business has been going for nearly 8 years now, and it's grown year on year, and hopefully it's a good business. I have people that are really happy with the work that I've done. That, to me, when I get an email from someone to say, that article really helped me, or that course that I did, really changed things for me, like that, to me, that's a success.
And yeah, definitely. Your happy clients are the lifeblood of any business, aren't they? But how do you celebrate success?
I just feel good about it. I mean, I don't do anything specific. It just makes me like double down on what those things are. So if I know something's going really well, that's going to do more of that. But yeah, I don't kind of break open a bottle of champagne every time something. But I just, like, it's that general. Like, I'm going in the right direction, and I'm just going to continue it. The opposite being, if something wasn't working, then I would regroup and go, okay, so that's not working. Why isn't that working? What might be better? So I guess the opposite to that is I just carry on doing whatever it was that was successful.
How do you motivate yourself? Oh, I think I've already asked that, haven't I? I have asked that. Yeah. You're immensely inspirational to lots of female business owners and male business owners perhaps as well. And especially, we have followed the Talented Ladies for at least 5 or 6 years, the length of time that our business has been going as well. But who inspires you in business?
Do you know what? Actually, it's not anyone famous. It is this sounds really kind of cliched, or really kind of, but it is actually true. It is other people running business, people I work with. I mean, I work closely with lots of women, and I find them inspirational. It's people who go out and create really honest businesses that are genuinely creative, like someone like you, for example, who's got a skill and an expertise, and then goes out there and uses it in the world, because we're part of a vibrant economy of businesses that actually do things that help everyone, like it's like a tapestry all woven together. It needs all of these businesses. So it's people, like you, business owners, that literally are just going out there going, I can do this. People need that problem. I have that problem and that need that service. I'm going to go and provide it, and then just work out how to do it from there. It's the small business owners that I find inspirational. It doesn't tend to be the huge one, because often when you look at a huge successful company, there's usually some kind of shortcut, or the story is rarely kind of clear. But that when someone has got a small business that is doing okay, is doing well, that's someone who's got a real skill, who has really happy customers and just works well, and that to me is inspirational.
Oh, that's such a lovely thing to say. I thought you were going to say someone really famous, but it's actually all the women that are part of your community, really.
Absolutely, and it genuinely does. When people, occasionally will reply to a newsletter, and I genuinely, really, really, I'm not to say it sounds trite, but it's not. Genuinely, that is why I set it up, and I think it's really dangerous to kind of have heroes, because we tend to put like celebrities, or we put them on pedestals, and we don't actually really know if someone's famous. Is often that PR behind it. When you talk to business owners, that is the truth. They're genuinely talking about the things they're doing.
Yeah, that's lovely. I think back to when you were 25 years old. Hannah, what were you doing back then?
Last
Week?
When I was 25 years old, oh gosh, I was living in Hong Kong.
Oh wow!
When I was 22, yeah, I was 22. I dropped out of uni. I was doing an art degree, and I didn't know what I wanted. All I knew is I wanted a creative job, and I didn't know what it was, and I was really lost. I went to a careers advisor, and she said to me, well, you know, because you didn't finish your degree, really the latest qualification you've got that means anything is an A-level, so you're equivalent to an 18-year-old school leaver. And she said, you know, just get an office job in your town. And I just thought, oh my god, that's the worst possible thing I could think of doing. I would, you know, like, that's not a life. So I got a job in a cardboard box factory in my town, saved for a year, and I bought a one-way ticket to Hong Kong. I'd never been there before, had no friends, family there. I was just so depressed and so lacking in direction, and I felt hopeless at that time. I literally had no idea what I wanted to do, and I thought something has to change. And I loved it. I spent 5 years in Hong Kong. I made loads of friends there. I got into advertising when I was there, so I found my career there. I grew up really there, and I had an amazing time. So yeah, when I was 25, I was living this carefree life, no children, living the other side of the world. Working in advertising, just started working in advertising age 25 and loving it.
Amazing. So what advice would you give to, you know, your 25-year-old? It doesn't sound like your 25-year-old self needed any advice, but if there's any 25-year-olds out there that are listening and feeling inspired by you and your journey, is there any advice that you'd give them?
Well, don't marry your first husband.
As well, actually.
All right. Well, yeah, I wouldn't have had my son. So, but yeah, no, I mean, do you know what? I feel really grateful for the fact that I've always trusted my gut instinct, and it hasn't always been easy, because I bought one-way ticket to Hong Kong was my gut instinct, and when I left because I worked in the office of a cardboard box factory, yeah. And they said to me they wanted me to stay, and they will hold your job open for you so you can come back. And I was really adamant. I knew, part of me went, well, that's a sensible thing, you know, like, it's a job. You know, I could have had a career there. They really liked me, but I also knew I would die inside. I'd wither and die. And my gut was like, no, you have to have no safety net. And so I always had a gut feeling. And so I would just say, you know, carry on following your gut, you know, and I would say to myself, actually, you are going to make lots of mistakes. My first marriage, case in point. But those mistakes will always teach you things, and you'll be fine. You will have a mistake. That experience will be hard. Recovery, you know, like the learning period after that time will be hard. You know, when I left my first marriage, I was depressed. It will be tough, but those mistakes will teach you things that good times and success won't teach you. And actually the same in business. And that really has, you know, even now, everyone has business as a roller coaster. We all have tough times, and I know you have as well. We all have challenges, and I think life teaches that after living through challenges in life, you realize that they don't last forever, and they are gifts, because you'll learn something in it, and you'll be better afterwards if you learn the lessons, and it will take a different place. So I would definitely tell myself at 25, you've got a lot more tough times ahead of you, but that's fine, don't worry about it, because you would ultimately see them as gifts, and that's just life, and you need to have those. We don't grow into wise people through easy lives, we grow into wise people through tough experiences.
That is very, very true. So to go from something so profound, we're just going to ask you a bit of trivia now. We're going to do a quick fire round, thinking on your feet. So they're just silly little trivia questions. So favourite colour?
Blue.
Item of clothing?
Sorry?
Favourite item of clothing?
Pyjamas.
Especially in lockdown. Top destination after lockdown?
Oh my gosh, do you know what? It's going to be see my really close friend Carrie, who originally started TLC with me, now lives in the south of France, and I usually see her every summer. Obviously couldn't go last summer, because we met when we were pregnant, so our daughters are best friends. Oh. We're best friends. And I'm going to go and see her, and we're going to go on a road trip in the south of France.
How amazing. Last book read?
Well, I've started lots. I'm currently reading Nobody by Louise someone, which is really, really good. I have a temptation to read business books or psychology, but I try and read I try and read fiction to try and switch off. But I can't remember. Oh no, I think the last book I finished, which I really loved, is Mind Over Medicine Very good book.
Right, okay. I got bought Caitlin Moran's More Than a Woman, and I haven't read it, actually. Yeah, it's really good. It's written for women our age, so that's all I'm going to say. Spirit animal.
Spirit animal. Oh gosh, that's a good question. Well, my Chinese horoscope animal is a rat.
Oh.
And actually, when you look at the reasons why, the Chinese really revere the rat, because they're cunning and they're survivors, and so I maybe a rat.
Okay. Favorite flavor of ice cream?
Oh gosh, I'm not really an ice cream fan, but there is a gelato place that does Ferrero Rocher gelato, which is really nice. But yeah, not terribly fan of ice cream. Yeah.
Okay, that's a terrible question. I might ditch that for the rest of the interview. AM or PM?
Oh, definitely AM. I am a lark.
Are you?
Yes, absolutely.
I've really had to try and get the other way around now so that I can have an evening with my husband. So that concludes our interview for today. Thank you so much for your time, Hannah. Is there anything that you want to tell people about? This will be going out in March. So is there anything that you want to...
No, just, I mean, obviously our site is I can't even say my own business name, talentedladiesclub.com. If anyone is interested in kind of reading content, you can sign up to our mailing list. We get a weekly newsletter and various emails about courses we're doing. But no, I mean, just, for all the women out there, carry on doing what you're doing, be a survivor. And don't worry, I think, if, to my advice to myself at 25, I would say the same thing to you. You're going to make mistakes. And actually, you should make mistakes, because if you don't make mistakes, if you don't fail, it means you're not going out in your comfort zone. You're not taking yourself out of your kind of thing. And to grow and have life experiences, we need to take risks. Yeah. So I would say take risks, but understand that when things don't go right for you, it will be a gift ultimately.
Thank you very much for your time. Everybody follow Talented Ladies Club. You're on all the social platforms, aren't you? All the usual. Yep. I absolutely love your content. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me as well. It's been lovely.
Very inspirational. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.